Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into something incredibly raw, the absolute unfiltered anatomy of human trauma. We're going to be listening in, essentially, on a deeply personal audio diary. It's a real-time recording of a woman dealing with a life-shattering discovery. And through her words, we aren't just hearing a story about a broken relationship. We're actually getting an inside look at that profound and, frankly, terrifying mind-body connection during an acute crisis. We're going to see exactly how both the brain and the body process a total collapse of reality. I am confirming my opinion that I do not know this person, and it is terrifying. Wow, that immediate, visceral realization really anchors our whole analysis today. Just imagine waking up one day and realizing the person closest to you is literally a stranger. We're bridging the gap here between her intensely personal grief and the shared human psychology of betrayal. Because the terror she's describing, it isn't just sadness. It is a massive cognitive shock. It's the exact moment your brain realizes its entire foundation of safety is just wrong.
Part 1. A lifelong illusion.
So, we're looking at the intense cognitive shock of realizing a foundation built over decades was just entirely fabricated. Now, it's one thing to be lied to, right? But it is a completely different psychological earthquake when that lie covers your entire adult life. On one side, you have 28 years of a perceived joint life. On the other, a hidden, continuous reality of betrayal. The source material shows us these weren't just, youthful indiscretions or one-off mistakes from way back when. This was a continuous active reality spanning almost 3 decades. Your brain struggles to even process this because it means rewriting the memories of the last 10,000 days of your life. Every vacation, every quiet morning, every shared milestone, all of it has to be fundamentally reevaluated.
And this leads right into an immediate psychological consequence: the sheer horror of the unknown. Think about it. If someone is capable of hiding something so massive, so fundamental, for 28 years without dropping a single hint, what else are they capable of? The cognitive dissonance here is just deafening. The author of the diary talks about this growing realization. If he could do this, the boundaries of reality just dissolve. You're no longer just mourning a relationship. You are terrified of the dark corners of a stranger's mind that you've been living with.
Part 2. The physiology of severe stress.
When the mind breaks, the body absorbs the shock, and it does it incredibly fast. The biology behind this physical pain really comes down to cortisol. That's the primary stress hormone responsible for our fight or flight response. I want to step back from the emotion for just a second to look at this, because the brain actually doesn't differentiate between a physical threat, like, say, a predator chasing you, and a profound emotional threat, like realizing your life is a lie. So it just floods the system with cortisol. This causes a severe nervous system overload. This is exactly why acute emotional trauma feels like it's physically destroying you. On a hormonal level, your body is essentially attacking itself to keep you hypervigilant. Which brings us directly to her visceral diary entry. She says, "This will eat me, this will destroy me. First and foremost, it will destroy me physically." She specifically notes feeling these cortisol spikes in the audio. She knows her nervous system and her psyche are under absolute siege, and this completely validates how severe emotional trauma overrides your standard biological functions. It's not just all in your head. It is literally in your blood, your nerves, your organs. You simply cannot think your way out of a physiological crisis of this magnitude.
Part 3. The collapse of psychology and meditation.
We often believe we can armor ourselves against life's pains, but extreme trauma plays by a completely different set of rules. Psychological resilience, high awareness, meditation tools, self-soothing techniques, a carefully built worldview. The author possessed all of these. She considered herself resilient, highly aware, and deeply equipped with all these tools. These are the modern shields we're all taught to build, right? We spend years cultivating this mental armor, totally believing it's going to protect us when the storms of life inevitably hit. But here's the hard truth. Extreme trauma bypasses and shatters all of those psychological defenses. The author notes this is a really profound revelation. Honestly, no matter how much you've meditated or how much you've processed your worldview, an acute, life-altering shock bypasses the whole shebang. You just cannot out-meditate a trauma that fundamentally rewrites your reality. The tools that help you manage your daily stress or even moderate grief, they are completely unequipped to handle the systemic shock of absolute betrayal. These are the most terrible blows to the brain, to health, to psychological well-being. She reflects that this is the second most significant trauma of her entire life.
Despite all that psychological preparedness we talked about, she is just humbled by the sheer force of the blow. You might be able to smooth out the edges of your reaction, sure, but the core destruction, it remains. The trauma still changes everything. It's a really powerful reminder of our vulnerability as human beings.
Part 4, the point of no return.
Now we're entering a space where the initial shock settles and the path forward is just obscured by this thick fog of trauma. Let's trace her internal conflict on this timeline. Step 1, present shock. She knows instantly that she cannot live with him. That's actually the only clear answer she has right now. Step 2, the July 15th deadline. She creates an artificial boundary for herself. She literally sets a date in her mind by which she must make a decision or take a step. And this is such a fascinating coping mechanism. When the present is just unmanageable, we anchor ourselves to a future date just to survive the day. And finally, step 3, the unknown will of the universe. Recognizing she might not have the power to force an outcome, she prepares for life, or circumstances, to basically sort things out for her.
This timeline culminates in what is essentially a dissociative survival mechanism, watching from the outside. The immense, crushing stress has pushed her to a point where she feels like she's viewing herself from a distance. The emotional burden is so heavy that the mind steps back to protect itself. Finding herself with no answers, her only remaining solace is absolute surrender. She explicitly relies on the will of God, the universe, and this belief that a path is already pre-laid for each of us. You see, when our own strength is entirely depleted by trauma, surrendering to a higher power or the flow of the universe becomes the ultimate psychological safety net. So we've explored the anatomy of a deeply personal, overwhelming trauma, breaking down the cognitive shocks, the physiological attacks, and the shattering of psychological defenses. But I want to end this explainer by turning the focus from her story back to you. How well do we really know those who are close to us? If an illusion can be maintained flawlessly for 28 years, what assumptions are we making every single day about the foundations of our own lives? It's a deeply provocative thought, and one that really highlights the terrifying yet profoundly human vulnerability we all share when we choose to love and trust. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today, and I will leave you to reflect on that.